Right, the next joint or part of a joint I'm going to show you to make is a tenon. Now a tenon you can use for creating part of a bridle joint, or it can also be part of a mortise and tenon. Right, to mark out a tenon, again I'm going to use a steel rule, tri-square and a mortise gauge. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark where the shoulder is going to be. So in this case I would like the shoulder to be 35mm in from the end. So I'm going to set my ruler up on the 0 at the end. I'm going to count in 35mm, make a little mark, take my tri-square, put my pencil on the top of the line, slide up till it touches the pencil, and draw a line. Put the pencil on the top of the line, so it matches nice and accurately. Do the same on the other side. And then working my way around. Okay, and then the line should match all the way around. So I've marked a shoulder all the way around a piece of wood. Put it my bench vise. I'm going to take my mortise gauge, which is already set up. It's set up to 6mm between the two spurs, and it's also in the centre of the bit of material. And I'm just going to use that to mark the width of my tenon. I'm going to go across the top of the grain, down one side, and down the other. I'm just going to take my pencil, pop it in the groove. Darken the lines. And then I'm going to hatch off the waist. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do some knifing and notching. So take my knife, pop it on the top of the line where I'm going to cut the shoulder, slide the tri-square up to it touches, and I'm just going to cut the fibres of the wood so I get a nice straight line. Take my bevel edge chisel, 45 degrees, a little bit of the chisel at a time, pushing in at 45 degrees, making a groove or a notch. Hence it's called knifing and notching. And I'll do that from one side. I'm going to do it from the other side. So knifing. Chisel for the notching. 45 degrees. A little bit of the chisel at a time. Working my way along. Take the back of the chisel, remove the bits of material. I'm going to take my tenon saw, pop it in the notch, and cut down to make sure you cut down to the line on both sides. Down to the line at both sides. Now I'm going to line the vise up with where I want to chisel down to. I'm going to just okay, so that's the line I want to chisel down to. It's in line with my vise. Take my chisel round the correct way, take off the corner, begin to angle the chisel up. around the other side. Chisel to remove most of the material, and I'm going to flip the chisel around the other way, pressing down hard on the blade, working in from the front. Halfway. Flip it around the other way, line up where I'm wanting to cut down to. Again, no filing, keep it nice and flat. That's one bit done. And I'm going to repeat the process on the other side. So line up the depth of the cut with the top of the vise, bevel edge chisel, to remove the waste. We're at an angle. To remove a little bit in the middle, angle your chisel up a little bit sharper. Move the middle bit. Take your chisel, flip it around the other way, from the front, working in your way in towards the middle. Flip it around the other way. Take your time, nicely lined up. Keep the chisel flat. To mark out the bridle, again I'm going to use a ruler, tri-square and a marking gauge. First of all, I'm going to mark how far I would like the bridle to go down. So I'm going to take my steel rule and I'm going to measure back 35 millimeters and make a little mark. Take my tri-square, mark down one side, and I'm just going to mark all the way around. Taking my time, making sure it all lines up. Put a bit of wood in the vise. Take my marking gauge. I'm just going to use that to mark the width of the bridle across the top. Down one side. And down the other. And take the pencil, darkening the lines. Now, to cut the bridle, I'm going to hold the bit of wood when I'm cutting my tenon saw at 45 degrees. Now I'm going to take my tenon saw. The reason we do this is when we start to cut, when we start to cut the bridle, you're only going to have to cut a tiny little bit of wood to start with. I'm going to make sure my saw is to the inside of the line. So I'm still seeing my pencil mark, and I'm standing so that I can see the saw blade and the line that I'm cutting to. I wouldn't try and cut this one over here because I can't see behind the line I want to cut to. So I've positioned myself correctly, I've got the saw in the right place, and I'm just going to use my thumb just to guide the saw. So I've just started, and you can see that we've just started, I've left the pencil mark on, and then I'm just going to concentrate cutting down this line and across the top. So nice and gently. You can see the saw, I'm only having to cut a tiny little bit of wood, so it's quite easy to steer the saw where I'd like it to go. And I'm just going to cut down to the bottom there, and I've cut a 45°, so you can see my cut is now down to there. Okay, once I've finished cutting from this side, and I want to cut the other side, I'm going to move it at 45° the other way, and I'm going to move round to the other side of my bench, again so I can see the blade and where I'm cutting to. I'll start with a little bit. And this is slightly easier because I've now got the slot on the top that's not right. And I've just got to concentrate on making sure my saw follows down the line. And now what I've got is I've got a line that's now cut down to there. So there's a bit in the middle that I've still not cut out. To cut that out, I'm going to straighten up, put the saw on the top of the slot, and now the saw guides itself down nice and straight. And I've just got to make sure that the saw is exactly down to the line here on one side, and it's right down to the line on the other. Now I'm going to repeat the process. I've got my wood at 45°. I've got the saw so I can see the saw blade and the line that I'm trying to cut to. A little bit away from the pencil mark so I can see. And I'm going to just from one side, flip it round, change round to the other side of my bench. So again I can see the line I want to cut to. Check it's the right depth on both sides. Now I'm going to take the piece of wood and I'm going to line it up with my vise where I want to chisel down to. Take my 6mm chisel, which is going to fit in between the bridle joint, and I'm just going to use that just to remove the waste from the inside. Just going to use it to remove the waste from one side. The other side. Then I'm just going to use the chisel to tidy up the bottom. One from one side, and one from the other. Okay, so we've neatened up the bottom of that.